The Jewish ghettos of World War II were essentially holding pens for the Jewish population while the Nazis figured out where they were to put them. The Nazis considered many things, including forcing the Jews into Soviet Russia or moving the entire European Jewish population to the island of Madagascar. The Warsaw Ghetto was one of the many ghettos where Jewish people were contained. As you can see from the artifacts, it was extremely crowded. It contained 400,000 Jews, about 30% of the population of Warsaw, packed into a land area of 2.4% of the city. This meant it was very common to find regular-sized apartments with up to 15 people packed inside. Plumbing systems weren't usually functioning, and human feces was thrown into the streets from windows with other human waste and trash. Extremely deadly and contagious diseases spread at lightning pace in such cramped and unsanitary housing, and areas where adults would bargain for essentials such as food and water were also, and adequate clothing were also overflowing with people. Starving children would beg for food. People who lived in the ghettos were faced with starvation, which gave the ghetto an extremely high mortality rate. Some estimates say the average Warsaw Ghetto Jew got approximately 1,250 kilojoules per day. This was insane when you consider that the average recommended intake is 10,500 kilojoules. People died frequently in the streets of starvation, sometimes only covered up by rags. Small children smuggled in food from holes in the ghetto walls for their families, although being caught doing this would result in a severe beating or death, as no one was allowed to leave the ghetto. By August 1941, more than 5,000 people a month succumbed to starvation and disease, particularly typhus. During the lengthy winters, houses with proper heating were scarce, and many lacked adequate clothing for the cold. People, weakened by exposure to the freezing weather and starvation, became victims of disease. Tens of thousands died in the ghettos from illness and starvation or cold, and many committed suicide to escape the hell that was the Warsaw Ghetto. In the summer of 1942, about 300,000 Jews were deported from Warsaw Ghetto to Treblinka by Nazi forces. When news of the mass murder occurring in Treblinka leaked back into the Warsaw Ghetto, the surviving Jews in Warsaw formed the ZOB, which stands for Żołnierska Organizacja Bojowa, which in English is Jewish Fighting Organization. This uprising of mainly young Jewish ghetto residents was led by 23-year-old Mordecai, I'm not going to pronounce his last name. On April 19, 1943, Himmler sent in SS forces with tanks and heavy artillery to destroy the Warsaw Ghetto. Several hundred resistance fighters, armed with inferior weaponry, engaged them, and despite being far outnumbered in manpower, they managed to fight the Germans for almost a month. However, during that time, the Germans systematically demolished the ghetto buildings, destroying the bunkers where many of the resistance fighters had been hiding. This process led to the death or capture of thousands of Jews. By May 16th, the ghetto was again under Nazi control, and on that day, in a symbolic act, the Germans blew up the Warsaw's Great Synagogue. An estimated 7,000 Jews perished during the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, while nearly 50,000 who survived were sent to extermination or labor camps. It is believed that the Germans lost only several hundred men in the uprising. Thank you.